When you buy an audio interface, usually you get your two mic ins and you can plug your guitar in as well, and you have got a couple of speaker outputs, that sort of thing that go to your monitors. However, you do get what you pay for. You know, you can buy something reasonably cheap, sort of $100 or something, but if you spend rather more than that, you just have this massive ramp in quality. And also, with something like this, the Apollo Twin by Universal Audio, you get plugins which are actually included in the box, which saves you a lot of processing. Say you want to record through a compressor or an EQ or something like that. So let's have a look. And so here it is, the Apollo Twin by Universal Audio. Now what we've got here is essentially a very, very high quality 2-input audio interface. However, on the back, there is an ADAT input which does allow you 8 additional inputs which come from another mic preamp. For example, you could hook up anything to that that's got a light pipe or ADAT output. Of course, you'd have to set that as the master and make sure that this is the slave so you don't get any problems with clocking. Now, at the moment, you're listening to the mic input. I've got a AKG C414 connected, and if you look on the computer screen, you can also see that this particular piece of kit comes with its own software, which actually is much different to other audio interfaces in that it also comes with plugins that you can record through. Now, that has considerable advantages. That means you are saving a lot of processing power with your computer. So you're not having to put effects on playback. You can actually record them. Now, of course, beware. Obviously, once you've recorded with these things, you can't take them off. So you've got to be really sure, but it's basically what you do if you're setting up any channel. You'd apply a little bit of compression and maybe a little bit of EQ, and then you press record. And that's how it works. Now, we've got 2 inputs here. At the moment, if I press the preamp button, I can actually decide whether I want to increase the level or decrease the level of each channel. So if I go back to channel 1 on the mic, if I just turn it up a bit, you can hear that my voice is getting a bit louder there. And then, of course, just ramping it down to a level, and you get a nice level meter there, which shows you your input. Now on the front here, there is a jack plug which allows you to connect a guitar. Now if you do plug that in, and I shall just plug a jack lead in, it actually disconnects the microphone, so you won't hear anything from me when I plug this in. It changed it to the high impedance or high Z input. Now on the bottom here, we've got a series of buttons which allow you to do various things to your mic channel. You can apply a bass cut. There we go. So that's just ramped to that's just literally just cut the bass below a certain frequency. 48 volts, that allows you to apply phantom power, which of course you need for the AKG C414. Don't forget to switch it off if you're using a ribbon mic, but you would usually have some sort of preamp with something like the Coles 4038. You might have a cloud lifter, for example. The pad control, that allows you to just take down the level of your mic. So just switching that on just lowers my voice a bit in level. Then we have a phase reverse switch, so if you've got, you can reverse the phase of either channel or both. You wouldn't really do both, because if you've got phase issues between the two mics, or you're miking up a snare drum, for example, you may want to phase reverse one channel with respect to the other. The link control is for if you have other Apollo Twin sound cards connected, you can link them together. Monitor, this little button on the right here, that allows you to set the headphone level with the same control, or indeed the monitor level, which is your main outputs, which come out on a pair of jack plugs here. The headphone output is on the right at the bottom here. So we've got our standard connectors on the back for connecting up to your computer with a little power supply as well. The microphone inputs on the back will accept either jacks or mics, so they are essentially line or mic. And if you do hit the preamp control here, let's just go back to there, pressing the input button here actually switches it to line. So of course my voice would have gone away then. because you're just deciding between the mic or line input. You can't have both connected at once because it's a combi connector on the back. So obviously you'd have to sort of plug things in and unplug to do that, but that's absolutely fine. Now you get another pair of outputs. You get 3 and 4, which could be useful if you are sending, for example, a monitor feed. So you want everything to be essentially pre your digital audio workstation. Moving over to the screen, you can see that I've got my fader here, which is analog 1, which is input 1. You can see all the ADAT inputs here, which is your 8 inputs here, which is absolutely fine. That means that you can control essentially the monitor input level for your ADAT controls. You can also apply inserts from the Apollo Twin to your ADAT inputs. Now that is rather nice. Now, if I just go to one of the inserts, for example, I'm just going to click on here. You get your choice of plugins here. Now, of course, you have to buy all of these. It does come, this one came with a few plugins. It actually came with the Universal Audio 1176 Legacy. So if I just click on that, you get a familiar looking display. I'll just move this over. Here we go. So I can obviously make my voice much more compressed, really ramp it up like that. There we go. So this enables you to do the things that you would usually do in a pucker sort of analog studio, where you'd do a little bit of processing before your signal actually even reaches the tape recorder or your hard disk machine or whatever it is you've got your recording on. You can have other effects here. I've got there's an EQ as well, which comes with this. It's I think it's the Pultec Valve EQ. Now, if you do click on something, there we go. That's one of the plugins that's included, and that's a very familiar looking device for those of you who've been in sort of older studios where you get these massive great EQs. That's absolutely fine, and they really sound lovely. Now, if I click on one that I haven't bought, there we go, it comes up with this little message here. So is not authorized. You can start the demo, you can listen and try this thing out before you then buy the plugin. But of course, with all of these plugins, it's kind of how long is a piece of string, and you can end up spending money like water. So really decide on the plugins that you want. Now you can either use these plugins as for your monitors only, or maybe your vocalist may want a nice reverb, for example, monitor only, and that's how you do that. So if you set it to monitor, it won't record those sounds. So as you can see, this is a really fantastic device. This is really where you get into the sort of pro level recording, where you're, as you can hear on the mic, if I turn the mic preamp gain right up and whisper, 1, 2, as you can hear, there's very little noise. Very little noise. It's really very clean indeed. So I just turn that back down there. So there's plenty of gain, absolutely plenty. So there it is, the Apollo Twin by Universal Audio. Fantastic device. And so as an addendum to the demo of the Apollo Twin here, I'm going to talk a bit about the plugins that you can use to record with. Now, bear in mind, of course, the plugins that you're using here will be recorded onto your digital audio workstation. So although we've got fantastic plugins here like the 1176 and the Ampeg SVT bass amp, of course, you can't remove these afterwards. It actually renders them and records the output of that. Now, we have two modes. We've either got the monitor mode here or the record mode, and the record mode is what I'm going to use. So what we've got here then is just at the moment a Fender Precision just going into Logic with no plugins. And that's going in on channel 1 of my Apollo Twin here. Now, if I just go to the button here, there's a tiny little button there which sets the bypass. At the moment, all the effects are bypassed. So if I just click on that and then just click on the actual effect, you can see the limiting amplifier, the Universal Audio 1176, which is basically a device to be found in every studio on planet Earth. Now it's basically just taking the edge off the bass, it's compressing it. And you get the usual controls with the compressor, the input level and the output, which you would change according to the amount of compression that you've applied, an attack and a release control. And then you can set your ratio, which is usually 4 push buttons, and the meter you can basically set to display various things. Most people leave it on gain reduction, or GR, which means the meter is showing how much it's attenuating that bass there. So if I just close that, it's still active. I'm going to then look at the Pultec EQ. Now this plugin came with this device as well. Actually, all the plugins that I'm going to show you came with it. Any plugins that don't, it invites you to then try the demo and then to purchase the full plugin. So I've got the Pultec EQ now here. So let's just have a little look at this. At the moment, it's if I just switch it off, switch it on, and then you have basically a low cut and a high cut. So if I set the thing to 100 Hertz cut, you can hear it's basically just taken off the low end there, and of course I can boost it as well. But of course you risk overloading your channel if you're not careful. So it's very nice, this, and you can, of course, you can attenuate the top end. If I just take that boost off, maybe just to get rid of the breathiness of the bass. You can do that. Now, just looking to the next thing, which is, of course, for bass players, we have the Ampeg SVT, which is a classic bass amp design, all tube, 300-watt bass amp, usually running into a 8x10 cabinet. Very nice indeed. Now, if I just bring this in, you can hear that the bass amp is now working. And you can select which input you have, where it's the bright control. And then you have volume, treble and bass, and a couple of little switches which allow ultra bass or ultra top. So that's very nice. Now, if I just, you can get rid of them with the little red minus symbol there, and just get rid of that. So we've got no plugins live at the moment. Now I'm just going to grab a guitar. That'll do. Now, if I just go to here and just find the Marshall Plexi. There we go, for a Marshall Plexi Classic. Now, of course, you can download as many different amps as you want. You can get the Fender amps, you can get this, you can get that, the other, you can get anything. But of course, you have to pay for them. Now, if you've got digital audio workstation with Guitar Rig, for example, or Native Instruments ones, you may possibly decide not to buy those. But really, the compressors and the preamps, things like you can get Neve and AMS plugins and all of those sort of things, they're quite nice things to have, because that's usually what you'd have on the input stage before you begin recording. So, as I said before, you can use these in monitor mode. You can, you know, if you've got a singer and you've got to want a reverb or something, there is a reverb on here, and I can't remember which one is the free one. Now, that's the only trouble with this, of course, is that if you click on a plugin, sometimes there ain't nothing wrong with that. Now, of course, you've got all the plugins in a big line. So if you forget the ones that are free, you can actually go in to find the meter and control panel. If you go to UAD2 here, the little button there, it gives you the list of effects that you've downloaded. So authorized for all devices. There we go, Sentry Tube channel strip. So the start demo button is simply the, you know, these are the ones that it doesn't come with, and then you, of course, you can buy them. But as you can see, there are rather a lot there. So, you know, you can spend money like water. So really choose the ones that you think that you're going to use. So there it is, a very nice addendum to the Apollo Twin by Universal Audio.